This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me as usual are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week, we've got three main reviews to talk about. We're going to kick off with Alone at Night. Then we have another Bigfoot movie, Summoning the Spirit. And we're going to round off with Rage. Then we have our DTV, and then we have our short shot, which is Indiana Jones versus Uncharted versus Tomb Raider. That may sound familiar to some people. This is the sequel. And then we're going to round off with our DTV Throwback, Splinter. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film then is Alone at Night. Now, guys, this is, so sometimes I have to write my own sort of little synopsis before we sort of, get into the review and that. So I had a quick look on IMDb, and this is what it offered me. Quarantine leads to a night of terror. I think we need to embellish that a little bit, I think. So what we have here is a young woman is lent a holiday lodge by her best friend to stay during lockdown and spends her time working as a cam girl. However, not everything is rosy. One of her clients refuses to show his face, and someone seems to be breaking into the house. So this is an interesting one. So at its heart is a typical woman at home, single location kind of thing. We've done loads of these guys, as you know. But there are one or two little quirks about this one. So the cast boasts both Paris Hilton and Pamela Anderson. Pamela Anderson plays the local sheriff. She doesn't have a lot to do, a few scenes. And then we got Paris Hilton, who is doing one of these reality TV shows being shown on the TV. And it's somewhere between Big Brother and Love Island, I guess. And she's the host, and I must admit it is quite funny. Sort of some of those bits, quite amusing, and they just sort of pop up out of nowhere, don't they? Sort of as the film's sort of going on to sort of break up things. But other than that, the actual, the meat of the film, I guess, is as common as muck. It's well shot, it's well acted, but it's nothing we haven't seen 100 times before. And if it wasn't for the cast and this little quirkiness to it, I think it would be pretty forgettable. Steve, what do you make of Alone at Night?
Pretty forgettable, to be fair. I mean, I don't get why they have the reality show aspects of it. To me, it breaks it up too much. You're building a bit of tension. There's like three or four possible guys that could be this killer or whatever, and these stupid bits come up that just annoyed the hell out of me.
See, I was wondering. I was wondering if the two were going to merge, if maybe that was, that reality thing was like in one of the lodges down the road and she's going to run there and like crash it, but no, it doesn't. It's its own thing all the way through. Yeah. Yeah.
So to me, it was just pointless. There was no, it was, I don't know if they just thought, oh, we'll stick it in just to pad out the film to the running time or whatever. But to me, it just made no sense at all. It took away from the tension, the suspense with the horror story, which was fine, which was pretty decent on its own. But then you've got like 5-10 minute breaks, and it's like, no, doesn't make sense. I mean, like you say, if it had merged or if it had joined together, fair enough. Then but it just made no sense whatsoever. I mean, Ashley Benson, I thought was pretty good. I've seen her in a few things. She's quite good. The one that got me was Louise Guzman.
Yes, that was quite funny. Yeah.
He was great. You know, but that's what I mean. That's again, that's another, well, not angle, but it's another thing to take you out of the story as well. You know, the three, you style the horror movie, then you've got like the webcamming bit, then you've got the reality show, and it's just like, I know, let's mash it all together, chuck it in a blender, see what comes out, but they all come out separately again, and it didn't really work for me.
Indeed. How about you, Rich? How did you get on with Alone at Night?
Well, yeah. There's things that I got on okay with about it. I'm a conservative sort, so the whole all the sort of overt sort of cam girl stuff was a little bit off-putting. Although I can appreciate it contemporizes it, and it makes it very modern, and it does give something different to it. Like you say, it's like, so it is a sort of a quirky aspect, an intriguing aspect, or whatever, for what is essentially a mainstream film to have that content in it. But like you say, the rest of it is fairly standard stuff. All the like Louis Guzman stuff and whatever is like, I do wonder if that's like, quarantine sort of induced initiative of trying to take that sort of cameo sort of approach to making a film where you essentially shoot the actors independently of each other over these cameras or whatever. It's a sensible sort of exploitation movie kind of approach, given the constraints. The slasher movie stuff is kind of okay for what it is. The Pamela Anderson as Frances McDormand in Fargo kind of stuff is sort of interesting, but it doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. There's like a couple of scenes of sort of banter, and that's pretty much it. The twists are okay. What bugs me though was that reality TV thing, and how they decide to conclude the film. Without wanting to say anything or whatever, there's a thing they do which I just didn't get on with, and I was sort of like, no. As I know you've sort of you've pushed it too far there. I didn't think those bits actually really added to the film, and they tried to make more of it. I mean, that
was their way of trying to tie it all together, wasn't it? Right at the end, because you're never really even sure she's watching it. During the film, you're not even sure that she's actually watching that show. It's just there, and it's only at the end.
They do show her watching, don't they? There are a couple of scenes where she's and she talks about it with one of the other characters. And
even so, that just makes the ending make even less sense.
Yeah, that's what I say. They try to do something at the end, which bugs me, and I don't think it works. And that sort of, I think they should have ended it a little bit earlier. And not done that thing that they did. So without just wanting to spoil it for anyone who does see it, but so I think it's trying to take something quite familiar. It's throwing all these other elements. I mean, the reality TV thing. I mean, come on. I mean, that's not novel. But loads of other films have been doing that since the early 2000s.
It is interesting to see another. It is interesting to see another quarantine film, another film about lockdown or set during lockdown. There aren't that many yet. I mean, we had The Harbinger, which we all really liked. There's also one which hasn't come here, which went straight to HBO. Let's slip my mind now what it was called. That was supposed to be a good one as well. That's just so vague. But yeah, there's been a handful. There was a Canadian one called Camping Trip, which I covered on my other website. It's been a small handful of them, and of course Host, set during lockdown. So, but not too many people have really dug into the how you can exploit the sort of horror of that situation just yet. Maybe it's still too fresh for a lot of people.
There was also I will say I think there were too many suspects, but some of the suspect stuff was really well done. Some of the the guy. I mean, considering she's out there on her own, she bumps into a hell of a lot of people. But there's quite a few.
I did
there's like the guy who comes to fix the broken.
Oh yeah.
Broken line. I thought he was quite good. And then there was the neighbor
the brother
guy,
of a friend. The brother of a friend. I thought he was
brother of a friend and stuff. There were so many.
Yeah, so some it's some likable actors in it. It is well shot. I did like the main character. I thought she was quite, she had this sort of her own sort of sexual agency. She was in control of everything she did with the cam girl stuff. And when she is threatened towards the end, she's able to use this situation, or to exploit the situation to try and free herself, which I thought was quite good. So there's a lot going for it. Quick aside about the director, Jimmy Giannopoulos. We've covered one of his previous films before. Do you guys remember us covering a film called The Birthday Cake?
Yes,
that was the Val Kilmer one, wasn't it?
The one with Val Kilmer, but it's like
which was a very different film.
Very different film.
That was also put out by Signature Entertainment, same as this one.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, but yeah, very, very totally different kind of film. I think he co-wrote this one. I'm pretty sure he co-wrote the other one as well, or wrote the other one. So yeah, versatile at the very least. Certainly give him that.
I to be honest, I thought when going into this film, considering the how sort of female centric it is, that the director would have been, it was like a written and directed by a woman, but it isn't. No, it wasn't. It was
old Jimmy.
It's this guy. But so the Birthday Cake, which also had Ewan McGregor.
That's right.
Was like a gangster movie, so a very different kind of film to this. I think I liked that one.
I think we did.
Out of the two, they're very different, but I think I like that one more as a whole film.
I think I agree. I think this one's a bit too, there's two different elements and they don't mesh really at all. So yeah, how are we going to score it? Over to Steve.
I'll give it a 6.
Yeah, spot on. I believe it's a 6 as well. And Rich?
Ooh, see, I don't feel like a 6. I'm going to sort of sit on the fence with a bit of a 5, I think.
All right. 2 6s and a 5 for Alone at Night. Go check it out. Our next review is Summoning the Spirit. Carla and Dean decide to escape the hustle of the big city, purchasing a home in the remote forest. They have big plans for their new quiet life, only to find something much more sinister. The couple quickly realize that they are on the land of a cult, and the leader claims a telepathic connection to a legendary flesh-eating beast deep in the woods surrounding them. Okay, guys, so I only managed to watch the first 15 minutes of this, unfortunately. I never got a chance to finish it off. So it has an interesting sort of prologue, bit confusing prologue, actually, because I think, what the hell is this couple doing? But that was kind of interesting in itself. And then we meet the couple. They suffer a bit of a tragedy early on and then start meeting people who I think they sort of initially believed to be sort of, or assumed they're some sort of like new age hippie commune kind of thing. And then I imagine things sort of take a more sinister turn. So over to Steve, what did you make of Summoning the Spirit?
Not great, to be fair. It's one of them where you got the typical yuppie-ish couple. Obviously, like I say, going through a bit of a tragedy. Nice and tidy at the start, and then they bump into these annoying hippie, trippy, cult people. And in the last 15 minutes, it all goes to shit, and that's basically about it. I mean, did you say you'd seen the beginning?
Yeah.
So you've seen how bad the monster.
I liked that. It's we've seen better, but what I liked was the speed of that particular attack. I thought that was pretty good, and then it suddenly cuts very quickly. So
Yeah.
But we've seen better for sure.
Yes,
especially
definitely.
with the
I mean,
Bigfoot trap and things like that.
It's probably made for 300 quid and a roller sellotape, you know. But yeah, it's a bit uninspiring because, like you say, it's one of them. You've got the two main characters who are okay, but then all the others are just annoying. And yeah, you know, probably supposed to be, but it doesn't help when you can't stand the characters.
Yeah.
And it, you know, you've got no one to care about. You don't give a shit what happens to any of them. And you can't see the ending coming a mile off from the beginning. And there's nothing original. I mean, it's shot quite well. Like you say, at the beginning, you know, the speed of it, I think, is just to kind of cover up.
Oh yeah, you don't want to be stood studying the thing for
exactly.
any length of time.
Yeah, exactly. And then it kind of does that at the end, but you do see more of it at the end, and it's just so uninspiring. Just left me flat, really.
That's a shame. Rich, we have covered quite a few Bigfoot movies over the last couple of years. How did this one fare with you?
I don't think. Well, I say the Bigfoot part is kind of a bit like when we watched. What was the last one we watched where it was the two guys
in the Bigfoot trap? Yeah.
Bigfoot trap. Yeah, it's kind of another one of those ones where it's not really about that.
Yeah.
The Bigfoot is there, and unlike the Bigfoot trap, they do just basically put it front and center as soon as the film starts, so there's no question whatsoever. But that's not really, and the film does, you know, it cuts back to either walking around the woods or actually doing something throughout the film, which obviously comes towards the end. But the main crux of the film is say this encounter with the cult and all this sort of stuff. I think I really liked it, and I think you would have really liked it, Mike, if you'd have had a chance to see the whole thing, because of, you know, I know you're interested in all this. You know, remember The Devil to Pay?
Yes.
Where she went and she encountered that group, and I think there was like I don't know if were they using like a drug or something, and they I can't remember what
it was acid or something, wasn't it?
Acid or something. Yeah, that was it.
Acid.
So there's something a bit like that in this, and the other film, Jug Face is another one that came to mind, and also, but on the flip side of that, do you remember that comedy we watched, King Knight?
King Knight. I was thinking of that. Yeah, that must admit.
Yeah. So
the
you didn't like it, Steve?
Yeah, Matthew Gray Goobler.
Yeah.
Where he was like the leader of this group and stuff, and they were all it was all very quirky and stuff. I like that, but this is that a lot of that is that stuff, but it's not played for laughs. You know, some of it's just sort of quirky, funny, but it is, you know, it's not meant to be a comedy or anything. But the whole setup and the characters and that are very, very similar. But then in this story, we've actually got the focus on some external characters. These, like you say, the couple that encounters them and gets drawn into their
I imagine that's kind of how it goes, is the fact that they exploit their tragedy as a way of sort of saying, well, we can help heal you, or, you know, or something. And I suppose that sort of drags them in.
Yeah, I think they do sort of. I mean, they do kind of give them more of the time of day than seems reasonable. But, you know, I just sort of go with it. It is a quirky film, and it's, you know, it's structured quite in. It's got quite a. I say it's quite. It's a bit like an alternative kind of. It's not particularly mainstream in some of its approach, but it's not too. It's kind of sits nicely on the fence. It doesn't go too far. It's not. It doesn't feel like it's really pretentious or trying too hard to be like the Wicker Man or something like that. But it's definitely skirting in that territory, and like Jugface and things like that. I think it's not a creature featurey kind of movie. That this is the work of what I consider to be quite skilled filmmakers. The music as well. There's very clever use of like quite discordant music throughout the film, where it's all about sort of keeping you unsettled, and, you know, some really strange stuff happens in the movie, and you just kind of have to go with it. And some of it makes sense, and some of it doesn't. But I think if It really, yeah, it's a hard one to sort of sum up, I think, to an extent. But what I would say is, it was not what I was expecting. It took me by surprise, and it was a pleasant surprise. I think this is a film that is more than it seems to be on the outside, and would perfectly sit alongside some of the more esoteric, yeah, some of the more esoteric mainstream films that have garnered attention in recent years. So you know, I can't say Midsummer because I haven't seen Midsummer or something like that. But you know, it's got that sort of folk
I was
folk
about to
horror
say, yeah,
thing going on.
Sounds like a bit of a sort of folk horror one.
Yeah, it's really. I thought it was really, really interesting.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm expecting very different scores for this then. Steve. Steve, what do you reckon? A 5, and Rich?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to give it an 8. I think. I thought it was. Wow. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. The guy who made it, John Garcia. Yeah. He's got quite a long filmography, but nothing I've really seen. He's directed this. He's got 15 directorial credits. Saying nothing I've really see. Again, sort of seems quite diverse in the sort of stuff that he does. But I'm definitely interested to see some of that work. Yeah. He definitely doesn't seem to be like sort of a horror director. He's sort of there's definitely an emphasis on some drama, I think, and that's sort of reflected in this film, which in the horror film, the horror parts, the actual sort of the sort of sort of killy sort of the bloody moments are more punctuation marks than what the sort of main film is about. The better horror is the sort of the more subtle stuff, I think. Yeah, I really highly recommend people go check it out.
I must admit, I'm just looking through his filmography as a director. I can't see anything that I've seen.
There's a mixture of shorts and sort of mainstream stuff on a variety of different themes. Some of it including horror elements. So he definitely sort of works in that sort of low budget, sort of mid to low budget, possibly micro budget sort of area. This has got a nice look to it. It's got nice music, and say the cast I thought I really liked the whole cast. The characters that were supposed to be sort of irritating but that was by design. I think there's some really interesting characterizations. There's like one who's like really she sort of seems quite sweet, and then she just throws the toys out the pram about something really innocuous and stuff like that. There's some really funny but sort of it's say like King Knight. It's sort of like dialogue that it seems funny, but it's not intended that way, and you don't sort of you don't laugh at the film. But it's just sort of odd, but it's not off-putting and all that. Sort of you just sort of ride with the quirks. I think if you can sort of get into the rhythm of it. I think it might have I think it will be a bit of a Marmite kind of thing. Some people just wouldn't get on with it.
But, case in point. Yeah. But I am intrigued. I do want to sort of finish watching it, I must admit, and. Hopefully I'll get time to do so. But that is a 5 and an 8 for Summoning the Spirit. Go check it out. Our next film is Rage. What is supposed to be the best holiday of their lives turns to horror as a group of teenagers are picked off one by one in a small coastal village. It took me ages to figure out where this was set. I was really struggling with the accents in this. It turns out it is. I mean, it's South Africa. So,
South Africa, yeah.
But it did take me a long time. I'm thinking, is this with the opening bit, which is sort of set at this nightclub kind of thing, and it's been narrated by one of the girls, and I'm thinking, it's English. And then later on in the film, thinking, no, it's Australian. And then by about the last bit, I'm like, all right, okay, yeah, it's South African.
And it's like they're speaking Dutch. No, it's not Dutch. It's Afrikaans.
It's Afrikaans, yeah, exactly. By that point, I'm like, okay, got it. I shall talk about this myself in a sec, but I'm throwing it over to Steve. What did you make of Rage?
You just can't me have a drink of water. Sorry. To be honest, I found this very similar to Summoning the Spirit.
Okay.
you've got your group. It's not a couple, but you got a group of teenagers in a different setting than what they normally are. And again, it's something we've seen a million times before. Group of teenagers, spooky locals, blah blah blah. That kind of thing. And again, I didn't really like the characters. I thought they were quite annoying. There's the old lady, who I thought was quite decent. She was actually, seemed to be pretty all right, but the others were just narcissistic. Alkies or whatever, killing the tits off and stuff like that.
Typical teenagers, mate, basically.
Well, yeah, I know.
Typical privileged teenagers who can swan off to, the summer house kind of thing. That's what we're talking about, basically.
Yeah. And it does take a while to get going as well, I thought. It was like 45 minutes in before you kind of get a grasp of what they're doing and what's happening. And again, I just found it a bit fun. I mean, some of the kills are quite good, especially when like the girl escapes. The other girl escapes and then gets caught again, shall we say, in the truck.
Yeah.
But one thing that's annoying me, not just with this, but a lot of stuff at the minute, is the very last shot. It's like, it's not in the minute really, it's been going on for years, but there seems to be a lot of them at the minute. Is the very last shot is telling you that it's still bad. You know what I mean? It's not. Yeah.
So sometimes it works, sometimes it really doesn't. I watched a film on Shudder the other night called Death Valley, which was very similar to The Lair. The one we covered the other week. The Neil Marshall one, a bit similar to that, but it sort of robs you of any catharsis right at the last shot. You know what I mean? It's like you didn't need to do that. He could have just let things go to the natural conclusion. Everyone goes away happy, but it's like, oh no, you've got to twist it one last time. And I get exactly what you mean. They could have, she could have got into that car and it could have all been fine. But no, it's final shot, as you say. Just
it's like the one the other week in the Victorian prison.
Yeah,
exactly the same thing. Very last shot. You have to. It just seems to be just popping up quite a lot at the minute. I mean, having said that, this was made 3 years ago? Was it 2020?
This one was, yeah. So this is a TV movie for a cable channel in South Africa, I guess.
It's basically the equivalent of a Netflix movie. I mean, they list it as a TV movie,
that's
but
a good point. That is a good shout. That is,
yeah.
I was actually subscribed to that service for a while, and this was probably on it, but I didn't watch it. I watched a couple of other South African horror movies on it, but this must have been there at the time, and it's got quite a rubbishy looking poster, so that's probably why I didn't give it the time of day. But Showmax is the you can actually subscribe to it over here, and you can actually do it on free trial if you wanted to watch this film, but not pay to do the rental. You can do it as a free trial and just watch it on there. But so a Showmax original is how they present it.
Yeah, exactly. Is it free Prime, Rich?
Sorry?
Is it free Prime? Or...
It's not a free Prime. It's like a separate. It's a whole access it for a website thing. I just found it because it was somewhere where there was a short film that I wanted to see, and it was only available on there. So I ended up seeing it as an aside. They don't have a. There are a few other things on there. Like, there was a horror film called Her Mask, which I watched, which was quite interesting. But without meaning to sort of cut in on this, I will sort of say that I think this is one of the best South African horror movies I've seen, and I haven't seen that many. But there was one called Slash quite a few years ago, which was basically had Steve Rails back in it. It was basically shot in South Africa, but pretending to be America. And this is actually set in South Africa, which I thought, added a lot to it. Same as that Her Mask did. It was sort of based on the cultural melting pot that is South Africa, and sort of drawing stuff out of there. And you've got the different languages, and
It's another folk horror as well, you know.
Folk horror elements and the conflicts and stuff. So yeah, that's so you like what I thought. Sorry, I'm sort of hijacked this from I've said that. But what I thought was interesting is this has got elements of both the previous films that we were talking about. We've got the, you know, sort of the confident, you know, sexually kind of liberated characters, sort of in charge of their own, you know, sort of destiny kind of thing. You know, they're all, like you say, they're using drugs and all sorts of stuff, and you know, fluid sexuality, and there's different stuff on display. It's very contemporary, but I would say, and there's other films that we've seen like that, which I'll mention in a minute. But what I thought of this was, when I was watching it, I was like, this might sound facetious, A24's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because there was a film called Bodies, 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 which was an A24 release, which had characters exactly like this. And a lot of the sort of partying stuff was the same. There was also that Shudder movie, The Seed, which kind of did the same thing as well, wasn't it? It was like these women that would going away, staying in a cabin, they're doing these drugs and stuff. But yeah, so you got all these sort of elements with the characters who were quite, to be honest, pretty obnoxious characters, and they're getting, you know, they encounter this sort of cult group, say a bit like in Summoning the Spirit, but the cult is quite they're quite like the Sawyer family from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's one of the guys who, you know, one guy they, you know, bring in, and they're sort of inviting him to the group, and they're basically just laughing at him and stuff, and that doesn't work out very well for them and whatever. But he's kind of the Leatherface of the film. I think there's sort of, or a proto Leatherface inside one of the prequels or something. Anyway, I'm sure you can see where I'm coming from with this. But but I thought it worked really nicely. I thought the look and the feel of the film as a whole, the cult stuff, all the, you know, the doll things that was sort of left around in sort of you know, Blair Witchy kind of style, and then sort of gooey and whatever. The old lady who it turns out is pregnant. That was all pretty creepy stuff and whatever. And there's like, you'd have thought they'd run a mile when they saw some of this stuff. They were so sort of lost in their own sort of you know, arrogance, I guess.
There's a lot of stuff like that, isn't there? Which is reminiscent of Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
You know, the one shop that's left, you know, is the harbinger, as they call him. You know, is sort of the one guy there, sort of saying, "You're all doomed," and all the rest. You know, that sort of stuff. It's all in there.
It's all standard stuff, and like I say, that sort of, the fact that it's set in South Africa, and you've got these actually South African characters and the Afrikaans speakers, and the mixture of the language and the sort of say that the contemporary sort of diversity of the cast, and it's a very modern version of a very, very familiar story. I think it does feel, in spite of itself, it feels quite fresh. Which I think it makes it quite. I was really impressed by it. So I thought it had something really interesting going on in it.
For me, a couple of observations. One is, the characters themselves are arrogant and, you know, privileged and all the rest of it, but things happen so quickly, you can't really blame them for being particularly stupid. And in fact, when there's like three of the girls together, they're actually quite smart. You know, they're following a blood trail out in the woods, and they suddenly go, "Hang on a minute, no, this is a trap. Let's head back." You know. Which
there's also the drugs element, which makes them act stupid, and also alters their perception about what's going on and things. So there's different elements at play,
especially when you realise that the Leatherface guy that you mentioned was actually at the nightclub at the beginning as well, or you know, all that sort of stuff. It sort of ties in quite nicely. I agree. I did kind of like this one. I think there is a better version of this kind of film out there. There's one in particular that I saw, which was directed by the same woman who did Witch Hunt, which we all liked.
Oh, okay.
She's got a film on Shudder called Head Count.
Okay.
and that is really good. And it's got one particular moment of brilliant editing and makes you go, "What the fuck?" You know, it's the most innocuous scene ever, and all of a sudden it turns on a dime, and I think, "Shit," you know, which is great. Really recommend that one. It's on Shudder, called Head Count. But this is, you know, it's fun. There's a lot of characters to whittle through. There's some pretty gruesome moments. There's this whole thing about this. They're talking about this chemical that the brain makes on you know, you know, at the point of death, it sort of makes more and more of it. Because there's one particular scene you're going, yeah, there's one particular scene which reminded me of Starship Troopers.
Mm-hmm.
When Michael Ironside goes, "They sucked his brains out," you know, which yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, I thought this was pretty competent. It's, you know, a cast of relatively unknowns as far as, you know, Western audience is concerned, but it works.
To me.
Yeah, it certainly works. There's only one really moment where I thought, "God, you idiot," but you know, the rest of it I thought was pretty smart.
Well, there's also, I mean, like you're saying about the characters, one of them just all of a sudden one of the female characters out of nowhere, she like becomes this, they like turn her into like the badass of the group, you know. She's the one sort of pulling out the weapons and whatever, which seems, and they're like, hang on a minute. It's like,
exactly.
You've just suddenly changed. You've just suddenly completely changed.
Yeah, what's going on? Yeah.
But yeah, and I thought the guy who would be, let's say the and say, I'll call him the Leatherface sort of character. But not really the Leatherface. If you were thinking about like who to liken him to, Bill Moseley from Texas Chainsaw 2 is not his Chop Top character, but like he's like a Bill Moseley kind of.
The guy he really reminded me of. This is so outfield. He reminded me of one of the car park attendants from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The ones that borrow the Ferrari. Yeah. That's what he reminded me of. You know, speak English? Which country do you think you're in? Great. Anyway,
we're out of the sorry. There's a thing they do with the victims. Without going into it, I don't want to go into it because I think it will spoil it a little bit. But I was just wondering, what did you think about that element and how that came into play, and
I'm not sure if it all tied up.
No, I'm not.
You know, because you've got, on the one hand, that bit, and then you've got this sort of ritual on the other bit. And it's you know, the whole point of the ritual was you needed to kill 2 people in order to whatever's going on, and they kill like a whole bunch of people before the ritual. You think, surely hang around for the ritual, you know? But no. Yeah, so I'm not sure that all tied together particularly well.
No, it seems a bit slack there, to be honest. But that's fine.
Because obviously we get the voiceover at the beginning, but then by the time we get to the end, I'm like, hasn't something quite bad happened to this character who did the voiceover?
So, yes.
So I was like, well, how does that voiceover fit in? I was a bit thrown.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, this is kind of one of the issues I have with found footage films. It's like, how are we watching this footage? How is it getting to us? You know, who's edited it together? All the rest of it. So yeah, you got this voiceover at the beginning, as you say, by one of the characters, who, let's say, may not be around by the end of the film. So how are we listening to her thoughts, kind of thing? You know, but who is she relating them to? Or maybe she
like on the radio, isn't it? Yeah. That's another trope. Getting a lot.
I mean, you know, to its credit, it is a film that isn't precious about its characters. You know, there are a couple of people who you kind of assume are going to be the heroes of the film. You know, the main protagonists, and let's just say you may want to back a different horse. But yeah, it's you know, again, it's nothing particularly original, but it is well made and it is well put together. And we did find it entertaining. So on that note, Steve, how are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 6.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 7. And Rich?
Yeah, I think a very solid 7. This is,
cool.
Really liked it a lot.
All right, and 2 7s and a 6 for Rage. Go check it out. Our short chop this week is Indiana Jones versus Uncharted versus Tomb Raider Part 2. Following their adversarial previous adventure, the treasure hunting trio decide to team up to stop a troop of Russians from discovering an antique relic deep in the Peruvian jungle. Wow is, I think, the main thing to say here. We really liked the original film. It was really well made. It was shot in, I believe, Azerbaijan, one of those countries. This looks like a shot in Peru, or some South American country for sure, partly, or at least they get some good sort of setting shots for it. It's more expansive. We've got the same trio of characters, trio of actors playing the characters, doing a good job without reminding us too much about Harrison Ford and Lara Croft and Angelina Jolie, for example. But at the same time, it does sort of lean heavily into some of the tropes of the Indiana Jones films, and bits and pieces of Uncharted and Tomb Raider, and it puts together a really decent adventure. I thoroughly love this. Steve, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I did as well. I mean, I thought the actual production was brilliant. The production design was great. The camera work was great. To me, it looked like it had been shot in Hawaii, I'll be honest. It reminded me of Lost a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when they're on the mountains and stuff like that. But, yeah, it was cracking. I've got no... I mean, some of the actors were a bit ropey. Like the main Russian baddie, I thought it was a bit weak, to be fair. But apart from that, it looked fantastic, especially for, like I say, a short film. I thought it looks as good as the originals.
Yeah, I really did like the humor in this one, Rich, as well. It leans into. There's a great bit where Indy's sort of going, "We got to stop that truck," and he said, "Stop that truck!" And then a minute, he's been chased by the truck, going, "Stop the truck! Stop the truck!" Which I thought, which I think is it's a play on something which happens in Temple of Doom. As well, but yeah, anyway, things like that were really good. I believe like Nathan Drake's sort of dialogue was added afterwards, and probably is some of the things he says in fights during the games, which is fine. But yeah, I thought the guy playing him was great. I like the cockiness. I liked the hubris that comes with that cockiness and like, oh shit moment. Thought was brilliant. But I think they spoiled it a little bit, because as soon as that happens, then you find out what the MacGuffin is, and you go, oh right, okay, that's how they're going to afford to do that, sort of narratively. Rich, you curated this one. Obviously, we as I said, we all enjoyed the original, so this was a no-brainer to watch. What do you make of it?
Well, I thought, now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but the first part didn't have dialogue, or didn't have much dialogue.
Well, it had a little bit, because it set up what the dagger was.
Yeah, but it was more about the fighting, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah, it was.
There wasn't much characterization of.
No,
of like
it was playing on the actual characters, so that you knew of them at the time.
Yeah.
But it was narrated by Lara Croft at the beginning, and then we had dialogue from. I think Indiana Jones only says that belongs in a museum or something like that. He has one line. But not much dialogue. This is much more expansive, probably because the three are collaborating together and working together, which is great. Yeah. It shows narrative growth. Plus, they've got a much bigger thing to solve. Originally there's three people scrapping over an antique dagger. This one, also ties into the first Raiders of the Lost Ark with the idol, and giving it a use. I thought all that was great. The visual effects were really, really good on that score. And the dialogue really works.
Yeah, so this one is I think there's about a year. There's been about a year between the two. So there was a great reception for the first film. So this is a made by Devon Supertramp, fully funded fan film. A non-for-profit kind of enterprise. They've all got together, and the first one was sort of an exercise of what if we put all these characters together and had them fight. And in this one, they're actually the same people, or the same formers are all back, but they're trying to, do a sort of more of a fleshed out story about double the running time. But this one's about 15 minutes compared to 8 minutes or so previously. And I think some of that works, some of it doesn't. But I admire the ambition of it. I think what they're going for, that some of the works, and obviously the action and everything, and they've added in other characters, like say the Nazi characters and everything, all works really nicely. I think some of the shortcomings in the presentation or the casting of those particular roles sort of falls down a little bit. Indiana Jones is such an iconic character in terms of his being played by, I know he's been played by various different people, like River Phoenix and Sean Patrick Flannery and stuff, but it's kind of the Harrison Ford sort of approach is kind of what. So the guy here it doesn't quite work when he's trying to do. When he's running around in the costume, it's fine, but when he's trying to do all the line deliveries and everything, I just don't think that works as well. I think.
Yeah, I disagree. I liked him, especially liked his voice, because his voice carries like Harrison Ford's.
Okay.
Which I thought was
That's
good.
fair enough.
He doesn't look like him. That's true.
No, I didn't think he looked or sounded like it. I just think it didn't. That part of it didn't quite work for me. I thought
there's a scene where he's out of his costume, and then he kind of gets lost in the film. I think, but when he's in costume, I think he's I think he plays the role quite well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fair. For me, like the Nathan Drake is kind of like more of the unknown quantity, so I don't have as much invested in him in terms of presentations of him. Tom Holland is basically the only one I know,
exactly.
So that's not really a particularly high bar, because Tom Holland doing Uncharted was just Tom Holland doing Uncharted, so it wasn't really like he was playing actually the Nathan Fillion one is better.
Yes,
the Uncharted fan film that Nathan Fillion did.
So
I think. Where there's not so much baggage, I think that works better when you're doing this kind of thing. I thought the version of Lara Croft here was pretty good. But it's really the fact that the way they've tied these characters together in a more fully rounded story, and it is fully rounded, from beginning to end. There's all touching on all the tropes and stuff. There's callbacks and everything to, like you say, there's loads of references to elements of each of the franchises. So good step up. It's definitely a very interesting companion piece to the first one. To sort of try and go in a sort of a different direction. So repeat some of the same stuff. The first one was made in Uzbekistan, by the way. I'm not sure I'm not sure if that's where they return to for this one. Like I see what Steve's saying, and it does look a lot like the sort of Lost environments. So it could quite well have been shot there. But it's got the it does all the, and the sort of the ref, like there's that sort of get out thing at the end, which because there comes a point in the story where it's like, well, hang on a minute, they've just done that. It's like, oh no,
exactly.
There's the thing at the end. So but it's great fun. It's really well worth seeing. And if this one does really well, who knows, we might end up with a third installment. The first one's had 1.6 million views so far. This one's up to, as of recording, 59,000. So still a way to go to catch up. But if they hit those similar kind of numbers, I'm sure they'll be eager to sort of throw themselves into another adventure.
I'll be honest, they're probably raking it in through the adverts. I'm telling you.
I don't know if they can make money from adverts if it's a fan film. See,
maybe not.
I think there's.
I'd say it's on for 15 minutes. I had 5 adverts watching this. It drove me insane.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, it's not.
It could be that
surely they can make the money back.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know. This is sort of getting into territory I'm not really sure about in terms of how much you can profit or cover your costs, let's say, when you're making a fan film. I mean, I know that obviously companies do crowdfunding or whatever to get their money, but how much somebody can keep an eye on that sort of thing, and did you make any money from our IPs and all that sort of stuff?
I'm sure Paramount are keeping a very close eye.
But ostensibly, my understanding is that they probably wouldn't be. YouTube might be raking it in 1.6 million, views, people watching all their adverts, but Devon Supertramp might not be getting their money. I could be completely wrong. Maybe they are getting the money, but it'd be interesting thing to find out. But this is definitely one of the, we've covered quite a few fan films, and this is definitely a quite high end production. And I would recommend, there's actually not a lot of Indiana Jones stuff out there. There was one called Star Wars Origins, which tied together the Star Wars and Indiana Jones universe. That was really big. That's well worth seeing. That's got Jamie Costa, I believe, in it, who we've seen. He did the Kenobi film. He played Ben Kenobi in that, and I think he played Indiana Jones in the in that Star Wars Origins and stuff. But I think Tomb Raider, I would also say there's a very good fan film out there about I can't remember what it was called now. Damn it! It's like Tomb Raider crossed with First Blood or Commando or something. I wish I could remember the exact title of it.
There was another one I remember covering ages ago, which was a feature-length fan film.
There's quite a Tomb Raider has got loads of fan films. It's actually probably one of the most well represented in the sort of fan film field. But what Devon Supertramp's doing, and he's got loads of other fan film productions that he's done. But I think what they've done here with this sort of crossover approach has really sort of marked it out as quite different, and as well as the fact that they've got really skilled performers to do all the action, and these are sort of stunt people and that who are playing these roles, so they can do it all themselves, and it's sort of raises the bar, I think, and you can't go in expecting that you're going to see the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider or whatever. This is not blockbuster stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it's very well done. Yeah.
For YouTube video kind of stuff, it's very ambitious.
Loads of stunts, loads of special effects going on in here. I thought it worked really well. Okay, so we don't score the shorts, but we certainly recommend you check them out. You will find a link to this in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Splinter. Trapped in an isolated gas station by a voracious parasite that transforms its still living victims into deadly hosts, a young couple and an escaped convict must find a way to work together to survive this primal terror. So this came out in 2008, directed by Toby Wilkins. Starring Shea Wigham, who can be seen currently in Mission Impossible, plays one of the agents who's after Ethan Hunt. Also starring Jill Wagner. Jill Wagner was in the Blade TV series.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if any of you saw that. But also she was one of the presenters on the American version of Wipeout.
Oh, right.
Just a weird thing. So if you ever saw that on TV,
I saw she was. I'm guessing Jason Momoa's wife in Braven, because she's listed as Stephanie Braven.
Yeah.
So
and she's also in the new series on is it Apple or Paramount called Lioness?
Paramount.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I saw she was in the cast for that.
Yeah, she's in that as well. So so we got a good cast here. Shea Wigham plays this very twitchy sort of convict who sort of with his even twitchier girlfriend do a carjacking even of this young couple, and things go to shit pretty quick when they get to this gas station, and it turns out the attendant has fallen victim to this parasite. Definite shades of The Thing here, but some really, really good sort of body horror transformations and all sorts going on. I really like this one, I must admit. Steve, over to you.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Really, really enjoyed this. I'll be honest, I wasn't looking forward to it. As you know, I'm not. You're not a very big gore hound and stuff like that. But it's not too in your face. It's again, I think it's a technique to, boost the budget where it's quite shaky cam. You can't really see a monster or parasite.
Yeah, things happen quickly. It's edited in a very sort of quick style, isn't it? But at the same time, you're left in no doubt what's going on.
Yeah. And I must admit, I thought Shea Wigham was absolutely brilliant in this. Like I said, mainly I know him for like bit parts in Joker and Death Note, things like that, and as a bit of a character actor. But to me, he's the lead in this, and he steps up to the plate, and it's the best performance I've seen him give. To be fair, I thought he was absolutely cracking in this, really good, and even the two like younger kids are great. But it's one location. It's not massive spread out or anything like that. But the way they do it, it works really well. Like especially when like the sheriff turns up like halfway through.
Yeah.
I thought that was handled really well, and how they escape and stuff like that. Overall, I really, really enjoyed it. To be fair, that was great.
Oh, that was great. Rich, had you seen Splinter before?
I saw it when it came out. I remember at the time there was a lot of buzz about it.
Yeah. I
think it probably did Fright Fest and all that sort of stuff. And I remember enjoying it back then. I think what I take away from it most from seeing it again is how it hasn't dated at all. I mean, it looks like it was just made. It's like it doesn't really feel like it's dated at all. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think that's probably because a lot of it seems to be practical.
Yeah, but also the sort of the look and the feel, and it doesn't feel there's nothing really. How we talked we've talked in this episode about sort of films that are quite self-consciously of their time.
Yes.
They're mentioning things, or things are referenced and stuff, and this one doesn't really do any of that. And the fact that they're not maybe using the latest mobile phone or an old, it's not really a feature. Sorry, coughing. It's a fantastic exercise in tension, because the whole film is completely tense. There's not a moment of sort of slack in it. I'd pretty much say it's pretty much a near flawless film. The concept of it is, like you say, the under siege in an environment kind of setup is, we've seen it in Dusk Till Dawn, we've seen it in Feast, we've seen versions of it all over the place. This version, the From Dusk Till Dawn actually is a good comparison, because that was another one where two sets of you got the criminals who take the other people hostage, and then they all end up in the situation together. It's like basically the same kind of setup here. Paolo Costanzo is sort of one of the is sort of the guy in the couple with Jill Wagner. He was quite hot at the time. He was doing things like Road Trip and things prior to this. He's still around doing quite a few bits, but he did a lot of comedy basically. So there's a bit of the comedy. He brings a bit of the comedy in it as well. But to sort of adds a little bit of levity to some of the scenes, because it is quite gruesome what's happening, and from the introduction of when the parasite and whatever is introduced, and all the sort of twists and turns of the thingness of it, when it starts pulling bits of itself together and all that sort of stuff. It's all really well done, and very unpredictable. The shaky cam thing, I think he's doing a couple of things there. It's not my favorite part of it, but I understand. I think I do see what they're trying to go for. I think one of the things is just to try and keep it really mysterious and unsettling of what the hell is this thing. We've watched a few sort of virus or creature, like the Thor we watched, that the thing with Val Kilmer a couple of weeks ago, and Sea Fever and different things like that. This is kind of encroaching on similar territory. There's a little bit at the beginning where they show a sign where there's basically there's been an experiment going on, and that's kind of, it's all a bit of a George Romero-ish kind of setup. There's elements of the zombie movie, and there's that whole I've got a scratch or whatever, I'm gonna keep it hidden. It's following a lot of familiar tropes and stuff over its 90 minutes, but it's it's really, really good. It's made by a British filmmaker, Toby Wilkins, who's gone on to funnily enough, he's gone on to do a lot of TV, but he did The Grudge 3, which was the DTV third film after this. On the back of this, basically got The Grudge 3, which I think sort of came and went. People didn't really pay much attention to it. I'm more inclined to give it another shot now. I didn't think it was that good at the time, but maybe I'll watch it again. But I look at his filmography and I think it never really. It seems like he never got the big break that he should have.
Yeah, off the back
after
of
this.
Yeah.
Because seriously, this is so good. It's like, it's almost like he got buried in sort of TV land. It's like actually, he did a Tales from the Grudge thing in 2006 as well, so maybe that's why he got The Grudge 3. But he's really, really good filmmaker. The setting and the way it's shot, and adding the little bit of pyrotechnics in there and stuff. I can't really praise this film enough. Really, it's well worth seeing.
One of the writers of this, a guy called Kai Barry, I interviewed him quite a while back.
Okay.
Because he directed his own film called Final Girl, not to be confused with The Final Girls.
Yeah.
Sorry, wrong one. He did a film called The Operative, also known as Rogue Agent.
Rogue Agent, yeah.
That is a really good film. It is a really good spy thriller. I got confused a minute with another guy, but this particular one, if you get a chance to see it, I highly recommend it. It's about this guy he's like a new operative, sort of sent to I think Berlin or something, and he's the guy on the headphones, sort of listening to what's going on, and making a recording of it all. And his team gets wiped out basically, and he's got to try and figure out what happened just from the recording, the sound recording. It is really good. I thoroughly recommend it if you can. I think it might be on.
I've been sort of circled that film
for
years, and it sort of comes and goes on some of the services and stuff. I really should make time to watch it the next time you come across it.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out. That is, Rogue Agent or The Operative, it's known as. But yeah, really interesting sort of guy to talk to, Kai Barry, for sure. But yeah, this is a cracking film. I thoroughly recommend it. It's available on at least one free-to-view service or on PLEX, probably elsewhere as well. As we say, it's been around
Prime or Freevee or something as well.
Most likely. But definitely worth checking out, even with the adverts. We thoroughly recommend it. That is Splinter. And that is the end of this week's show. So thanks to everyone for taking part. Thanks to Rich and Steve for watching these films this week. Unfortunately, I did get a chance to see all of Summoning the Spirit. I may have to try and fix that this weekend. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest. Should I still call it Twitter? I don't feel like calling it X. It's Twitter. It's fucking Twitter.
It's still Twitter at the moment, but it's kind of having an identity crisis. I think.
I know. I did a refresh on my computer screen the other day, and the emblem changed from the bird to the X.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you can still find us there at the DTV Digest, and also the short shots, where Rich puts a new short on every evening around about 8 o'clock.
Apart from recently, I've been on a little bit of a hiatus because of summer holidays, so there is a little bit of a dead spot. But hopefully, by the time you're listening to this,
there's
we'll be
plenty
back
there.
on track.
How many have we got on there now? About 300.
We got well over 800 films on
800 films. There you go. Crazy. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.